Joining us now is Ken Wharf, who's one of Prince Harry's former bodyguards and Princess Diana's former personal protection officer. Good morning to you, Ken.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. I mean, it's interesting, Richard talking to one of the paparazzi that was involved in whatever occurred. Now, of course, listening to him, he was doing nothing wrong, they were driving very carefully, but that's his side of the story. But there is a sort of a sense when we're looking at what we've heard from the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and what we're hearing from the New York mayor and the New York police, that actually the two stories don't seem to marry up, do they?
Well, I mean, the New York mayor has said that, you know, it wasn't a 2.5 or 2 hour catastrophic chase through the streets of New York. And here we hear from the paparazzi there that he's following. I mean, that's their job. And I think, you know, the paparazzi, they have a job to do. But and in fact, what for me strikes that this event wasn't managed properly by his security team. I mean, there was always going to be a potential problem there because, you know, it's a high-profile event. Let's not forget that Harry and Meghan are sort of global celebrities and are going to court that sort of attention. And he must understand that. And you know, Meghan likewise. But, you know, somehow this has got to be dealt with. And the security team, from my experience, just to rather head off from the hotel in this sort of catch-me-if-you-can chase, never, ever works. And I don't believe for one moment that, you know, that it lasted for as long as they say that it did. But clearly what should have happened, there should have been... The security should have managed that exit properly to give these paparazzi a photograph. And then, you know, sort of move on gently.
But would that have satisfied them, though, Ken? Because what we've seen endlessly is that sometimes people say, right, if we have your photo, will you leave us alone? But then one or two of them won't, and then it builds up again because everybody gets nervous that they're going to miss the one moment that's going to be the picture that everybody buys.
Yeah, but you'll never sort of please them entirely. I mean, from the years that I worked through the 80s, when, you know, the sort of pursuing photographers, paparazzi were relentless. But, you know, in that particular case, I mean, Harry was much younger then, but certainly his mother learned to live with it. It was part of their job. But I never, ever, for all the time that I spent there, both in this country and abroad, you know, recount anything like that happened yesterday in New York, because it seems to me there was just sort of lack of planning in this. And I think that there has to be a negotiation, there has to be a relationship between the security detail and the paparazzi to sort of hatch a plan to make this work. The police involvement was very limited. So it begs the question, how involved were they on this issue from the beginning?
Harry, you know Harry very well. He clearly feels very vulnerable and triggered, and we know he's still hurting from the loss of his mum. It brings out the mother in me, actually. I feel like you want to give him a hug. He looks so vulnerable. Is that, do you think, that sense what's fuelling this? Because, in a way, by expressing the extreme emotion they felt about what happened, and then it being clarified by the mayor and the police, undermines, doesn't it, what they want to say about their life?
Yeah, I think you're right, Gail. I think that, you know, Harry has a real issue with this, and I have some sympathy with that. You know, he lost his mother as a 13-year-old, and the drama of that, you know, lives to this day.
Yeah.
But equally, you know, he lived in a period of time and watched his mother almost relentlessly live with the pursuing media and the paparazzi. But actually, to make a comparison, these continued comparisons that every time he goes out, that reminds him, yes, I understand that. But in fact, he in himself is courting this publicity by you know, his own being, by getting involved with all these charities and business interests with Netflix and so forth.
And also the documentary and also the book.
Yeah, exactly.
Placed him in that
but you know,
right?
he's currently involved in sort of legal cases now with this government and the Metropolitan Police about his own protection here back in the United Kingdom. But I think, you know, both the police and the government are very, you know, open about this, that he is, let's not forget, a non-working member of the British royal family who's chosen to live in America. And I think, you know, it would be very difficult, you know, for the British taxpayer or the government to provide that protection, which he's seeking all the time, because he knows that the Yard's protection team, Scotland Yard, provide the best security possible. That's why I'm saying that we never experienced this behaviour.
When he was here.
When he was here.
How would you have organised what happened last night better if you'd been in charge?
Well, what I would do, I mean, what do the paparazzi want? They're not out to kill Harry and Meghan. They're there to take a photograph because that's their business. It's a democracy. So what you have to do is actually manage that situation. If you make a comparison with what happened with Diana in Paris in 1997, part of the problem there that the pursuing paparazzi, the whole thing was never stage managed, was never dealt with correctly. What I've seen from the photographs already is that there seems to be this confusion outside of the hotel and sort of complete mayhem without actually giving these people something. And to then suddenly go off on this chase through New York, trying to rid themselves of the paparazzi, never ever works. And so what should have happened, in the end, of course, we have this bizarre situation of a decoy going into a yellow cab, still being pursued by the paparazzi. I think what needs to have happened, what should have happened, if I was in charge of that, say, well, look, enough is enough. Let's go back to the hotel. Let's talk about how we're going to play this out. And
they were
deal
trying
with
to
it.
protect the location of where they were staying in New York. They didn't want the paps to know. And that's what the paps were after. They wanted to know where they were living or where they were staying when they were in New York, which is why they drove around for such a long time.
Well, that's understandable, but you can't have it all the time like that. The point is that if that is the case, well, then you go back to somewhere that is safe. Interesting enough, they went to a police station, a precinct. That's quite a good idea to sort of to re-establish how we're going to play this one out.
I would also engage the police with the scenario that they were scared of and was clearly escalating, at a point where they can go, look, we need your help now. We need some official, sort of visible police presence to maybe go out and calm them down and ask them what they want.
Which I believe they did, didn't they? They went out and spoke to them, the police.
Well, they did, but I think what Harry is... You're talking about the protection team. The protection team that's got at the moment have never dealt with such a high-profile celebrity as Harry and Meghan. And so to them, I have some sympathy. But the whole point is you have to take advice on this. And I don't know to what extent the New York Police Department were involved. But basically, it's something that needs to be properly stage managed.
Coordinated.
But I do make the point, I will make the point here from my own experience, is that the paparazzi at best can be talked to, but at worst, they're a nuisance. But they're not out, actually, to cause the death of any one person. So I think we have to be a little bit careful of that.
Ken, thank you very much for coming in and sharing some thoughts there. I wonder what you might say to Harry if you saw him personally, because I know it's been a while, but what would you like to say to him?
Well, I mean, I remember some days in the 80s when, he was a character, and he was always, a very lively kid. I mean, I think William found him, rather jealous of Harry's sort of popularity. I just think that I would say to him, look, I understand completely where you're at with your security, but, to be out of the United Kingdom and having declared that he no longer wishes to be an operational member of the royal family, it's very difficult. But I do think that he needs to revisit how he's going to sort of play his security. And I think that if there was anyone from the United Kingdom that was prepared to go out ex-royalty to give us some advice, that would be right. But, I mean, I think it's a difficult one for him. But I think he needs to play down this constant reference to what happened to his mother, because I don't think that actually is helping him. I think we need to find a way of working, with his own private security detail in collaboration with perhaps whoever the police department he works with. And equally, when he does come back to the United Kingdom, and I think what's interesting here is the government hasn't said, look, we're not going to give you protection. Of course, they will provide a liaison, because no one in this country wants him to come to any harm. So there is that connection, there is that help. And I just think if he understands that, I think things might be easier.
You say he needs to play it down. I wonder if he can't play it down because it's in his mind all the time, his mum. I think that's part of his own process, isn't it?
As I said, I understand that, and I have some sympathy with that. But I think practically, I think that there needs to be a way forward of looking at this and managing this a bit more effectively than it has.
I think we would all look at that situation yesterday and agree with that. Really good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed.